Today, you're going to learn the 5 elements that I think every church giving page needs. For example, one of these elements has to do with where you position and place your giving page to make sure it's easily accessible. And by the end of this video, you'll have the tools and knowledge you need to construct the ideal church giving page.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you're going to get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
Alex, today we're talking about the 5 elements needed to construct the ideal church giving page. And the very first element on that list has to do with how givers prefer to give. Which medium would they prefer to give through? Because if you're going to consider how to construct the ideal church giving platform, the first thing to consider would be, how do givers want to give?
Exactly.
Because if they want to give with cash, well, then we should double down on that. If they want to give with check, we should double down on that. If they want to give with an app or with text or online, how do givers prefer to give? We've talked about this before, but according to the 2018 Global Trends in Giving report, whether it's Christian givers, North American givers, worldwide givers, the way that givers prefer to donate is by and far away online through debit or credit cards. 54% worldwide prefer to give online via debit or credit. And like we said, we see those same numbers when we kind of like dial into just Christian givers or just North American givers, just UK givers. And if you compare that to other ways, it is vastly more preferred than other options. Only 4% prefer to give through an app. Only 1% prefer to give through text. When it comes to cash, check, those are right around 10%. And those are actually the second most popular options.
Yeah, so, and it's interesting. Those single-digit ones that you just made examples of, like app and text giving, those are very popular things we're seeing in the church giving world right now. You know, apps being advertised, give through your app, text to give options. But this data shows that that's not really how people want to give. They want to give online using their card. And so this is how you can build a giving page on your website.
So if we use that as our foundation, let's make the experience as easy as possible from there. We know people want to give online. They want to give on our website. They want to give with credit and debit card. How can we make that as easy as possible? Well, when I started considering this problem a little while ago, what became clear to me was that, well, if we're going to make giving on our website as easy as possible, let's make it available on every single page of the website. And there's precedent that exists for this. Platforms like Intercom and Drift have taken their little widgets. You'll find this on pretty much every single one of our websites, on our product sites. If you go to rebelgive.com, nucleus.church, storytape.com, you'll see this widget in the bottom corner, and that's how you can begin talking to us directly. And what Intercom and Drift found and have built $100 million companies on top of is that if you make conversations available on every single page, shockingly,
you'll have more conversations
happen. And so we took this same idea and that same technology and built it into our platform, Rebel Give. We make giving available on every single page of the website. Instead of putting it, in the navigation menu where it's just buried in the back of the site, available on only a single page, thus making more friction, putting more friction in between the donator and the donation. Just make it available on every single page. From there, that's the second item. The third item is taking a long, tedious giving form,
the worst,
and making it a multi-step form. Again, there's precedent for this. Platforms like Typeform and Jotform have built their entire companies, their entire platforms on this idea of no one likes filling out forms.
No.
If I could just think and give, that would be better. We're not quite there yet.
We'll develop that for next year.
Kramer thought it was coming real early, where you just think, but he was wrong. Okay, that didn't come by the year 2000. Sorry, Kramerica Industries. They weren't able to build that for us. We've still got to fill out forms. What's the easiest way to do it? Well, we found that multi-step forms have much higher conversion rates. We've got so many different examples for this. A financial lead generation site made the switch to a stepped form, and their conversion rate increased from 11% to 46%.
Wow.
A consulting agency changed their website contact form from, that basic WordPress form to a multi-step form. Their conversion rate went from 0.96% to 8.1%, which is an increase of close to 750% total.
That's modest.
An AstroTurf company A/B tested a one-step form versus a multi-step form. They saw a 214% increase in form conversions. Vendio, which is a website building tool, they ran a similar test. That resulted in a 59% increase in leads. Look, we got tons of examples of this. There's a reason Typeform exists and why so many people use Typeform. It's so much nicer to fill out. And there are psychological reasons for this. Most multi-step forms, firstly, reduce psychological friction. When you land on a form and it looks huge, you're like, I don't want to do this. Like if you've ever seen a tax form.
That happened to me last night. I had a meeting with a woman and we were going through a form And she pulled it out of her bag. She said, she prefaced it. She says, I know this is going to look daunting. And she pulled this form out of her suitcase, and it was, I felt overwhelmed just looking at the size of the form. Now, looking back, the experience of going through it was kind of, painless. But if I wouldn't have seen how many steps there were, and we just had that conversation and it evolved naturally, it would have felt so much more painless to me. And that's how stepped forms work. You don't show everyone all the steps they need to complete at once, all the information you need at once. You just show them one step at a time. How much do you want to give? One question. Fill that out, on to the next question. And so people aren't seeing all these steps and getting overwhelmed. And like you said, there's no like friction involved there, and there's no hindrance to being overwhelmed. It's like, oh, there's too many steps to this form. I'm not going to fill this out.
Well, just think to yourself, how many times have you been given a large form to fill out and you've thought to yourself, okay, I'm going to just take care of this later.
Right.
That's you abandoning the process because you feel like, you know what, this is going to be difficult. I'll do this later. And if that's something when it comes to donations, maybe you don't do that later. Like with your tax forms, yes, the government will find you.
Yes.
You'll put it off,
they'll
but
make sure you do it later.
you'll still probably do it. But if it's something that's not actually required, you might abandon, because that first impression was so poor, you might abandon the form just never to return again. Another thing you can do with stepped forms is you can leave the sensitive data requirements till later in the form. So you're not going to lead with like, hey, enter your credit card.
Right.
That's a really, big deal. If you just start with, okay, let's start with your name, or let's start with how much do you want to give, and then you get to those parts later, we're actually leveraging psychological behavior, human behavior.
Sure.
Once we feel like we've started something, we're that much more likely to complete it with type form, with jot form, with Rebel Give. There's a progress bar at the bottom, which is a psychological reminder. Be like, you're making progress.
You're almost there.
You're doing it. You're getting close. And we all just love to see that progress bar. We're doing it. It's like the inverse of watching your battery go down, which is terrible.
Right.
But if it was always going up, you'd be like, we're
I'm
doing it.
Yeah.
It seems like maybe trite, but that's how human behavior works, and there is so much precedent for that. Of course, from there, you want to have a great mobile-first experience.
Absolutely.
Alex and I, along with a huge chunk of the Pro Church Tools team, recently we went and saw a movie together, and we were in a city. We drove to kind of an urban location out of our kind of old-school rural location of Niagara, and I was actually really surprised to see that every single person that I could see was going into the theater, and the ticket was on their phone. And normally in Niagara, I'd say maybe about like 1 in 4 people are checking in that way because we've got a lot of, older, more, it's a more rural location, so things are more traditional. But the point being is that we're moving towards everything being done on the phone.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good analogy for, churches.
Sure.
Maybe you're at a church that's smaller, but is younger. And so digital is huge. Or maybe you're at an older, more traditional church where digital is still kind of like, getting a footing in the door. The point is that we're moving in that direction.
Yeah. Either way, you can trust this upward trend.
And you need that mobile experience to be great.
Yeah.
And the final thing that you need to think of is the return experience for someone who wants to give a second time. What's great about Apple Pay is that once you set it up in your mobile device, you can give by just that double click.
Yeah.
It does take something to set up at the beginning.
Sure.
You got to confirm your credit card. It's got to go through a process to make sure, okay, this is legit, like all giving experiences. But then once it's set up, it can happen in a matter of seconds.
Oh, yeah.
And so we built that into Rebel Give as well, where once you've given the first time, you have an opportunity to sign in, create your account, and then you can give in just a matter of seconds on the return experience. And I just want to respond to an objection because I know someone is listening or watching this and they're thinking, okay, Brady, you're talking about an ideal giving form. You're just describing your giving company.
Yes.
Yes, that is what we're doing. Because when we build products, we always start with a problem.
Of course.
And you're probably hearing this for the first time, and it sounds like we're kind of like reverse engineering the data to explain why our company and our product is why we think better than others. But when we begin building products, we start, let's say, a year ago. You don't see this, but our team comes to me and they say, okay, here's the problem with the way church giving is currently. And I think that we can do something differently. This happened with Nucleus. It happened with Storytape. It happened with the social program. It happens with everything that we do. And this is important because when I first talked about the central hub, which is, our big idea behind Nucleus, our church website builder, I released a course on the central hub. And I was like, this is how we should do websites. And everyone that went through the course, the common feedback we heard was, yeah, so what do we use to do it? And I was like, oh, well, you should build it. Like, we can't build it. And I was like, really? They're like, I was like, just hire someone. They're like, we can't spend $10,000 to build it. I was like, interesting. And since then, we've stopped presenting solutions to problems, like big ideas, without actually having a tool to also solve that. And that's what we've done with Rebel Give. This is the data that we've had for the last year, knowing how we can build giving tools that and giving forms that are amazing. And rather than saying, hey, you should invest in a tool that allows you to give on every single page, but, well, we don't have a developer of it. Oh, well, we can build that for you.
Yep.
So that's the idea behind the ideal church giving page. And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time. I was running through the 6 with my woes. Are you my woe? Then subscribe. A woe is a friend, by the way.
I was going to say, I don't know what any of that means, but now that I know what it means, you can like this video. I endorse it.